If your morning coffee has ever tasted bitter weak and somehow dusty, I've got good news and bad news. Good news, you're not suddenly terrible at making coffee. Bad news, a lot of the biggest coffee brands in America have quietly perfected a product that tastes like brown motivation, not actual coffee. Because here's the dirty little secret of the grocery coffee aisle: most brands aren't competing to make the best cup. They're competing to make the most consistent cup, one that survives warehouses. Shipping fluorescent lights months on a shelf and still tastes close enough that you blame yourself instead of the bag. And that's the scam. You keep tweaking grind size, scoops, water temperature, while the coffee itself is sitting there like, yeah, I gave up on flavor in 2009. Today, we're counting down 8 US coffee brands you should avoid if you want anything resembling a satisfying cup, based on the same things real coffee drinkers complain about over and over. Tastes burned, but still weak. Smells like coffee, then drinks like hot air. Harsh bitterness with no body. Weird artificial aftertaste. And that lovely did I just brew cardboard finish. Quick disclaimer before we start: I'm not saying you're a bad person if you drink these. Some of these brands are iconic. Some are cheap. Some are what you grew up with. And sometimes you just need caffeine, not a spiritual experience. But if you've ever wondered why your coffee tastes like a memory of coffee, this list will explain a lot. We're going from number 8 to number 1, and you'll recognize every name. And stick around to the end, because I'll give you a simple 30-second checklist for buying grocery coffee that doesn't taste like punishment. No snob language, no weird gear required. All right, let's start. This brand has the aesthetic of something your grandparents trusted. The name alone sounds like routine, comfort, stability, like you're about to drink coffee while reading a newspaper and judging your neighbor's lawn. And that's exactly what it sells: nostalgia. The problem is the cup doesn't match the story. 8 o'clock is one of those coffees that smells promising when you open the bag, like it's about to be rich, smooth classic. Then you brew it and realize the flavor is basically roast and then nothing. It's not that it's the worst coffee on earth. It's that it's weirdly empty. You get bitterness, you get a little smoke, and then it collapses into this flat, thin drink that feels like it's trying to be coffee without committing to being coffee. And the worst part, it makes you overcompensate. You add more grounds, you brew longer, you crank the strength setting, and now it's not stronger. It's just more aggressively bitter, like the coffee is shouting instead of getting deeper. 8 o'clock tastes like coffee that clocked out early. If this is your daily driver, you're not alone. But you're also not crazy for thinking, why doesn't this hit like it used to? Now, number 7 is what happens when a store brand takes the idea of coffee and turns it into a cost-cutting exercise. Number 7, great value. Walmart. Great value coffee is a reality check in a bag. This is coffee designed to win one battle price per ounce. Flavor is optional. When people buy store-brand coffee, they're usually hoping for one thing: please just be decent. Please just taste like coffee. I'm not asking for magic. And Great Value responds with best I can do is hot brown water with a hint of regret. The first sip is usually thin. Not light roast thin, just thin, like there's no real body holding the flavor together. Then there's this aftertaste that doesn't taste like coffee beans so much as the idea of a coffee aisle. And here's the thing: you can make cheap coffee that's still drinkable. That's not impossible. But Great Value tends to miss in the most annoying way. It's not bad enough to be a joke, and not good enough to be enjoyable. It's just there. It's background caffeine. It's the coffee equivalent of beige walls in a waiting room. Great Value coffee tastes like it was brewed in a meeting about budgets. And now number 6 is an even bigger insult, because this next one charges you for a name you think you already understand. Number 6, McAfee grocery store coffee. McAfee is one of the sneakiest brands on this list because people assume it's the coffee they've tasted in a McDonald's. And to be fair, McDonald's coffee in-store can be totally fine. Sometimes it's honestly better than you expect. It can be smooth, easy, no drama. But the bag you buy in the grocery store? That's not always the same experience. And this is where the betrayal happens. You're buying McCafe because you think you already know what you're getting. Familiar, reliable, I just want a normal cup. Then you brew it at home and it hits you with this odd combo of flatness and sharpness. Like it's simultaneously not strong enough and also somehow unpleasant. It's the kind of coffee that makes you add cream not because you love cream, but because you're trying to sand down the edges. And the flavor still doesn't open up. It just becomes a softer version of the same disappointment. McCafe in a bag tastes like the coffee got franchised. It's not undrinkable. It's just not what the name implies, and that's exactly why it belongs here. Now, number 5 is the first true legend betrayal on the list, the brand that built an empire on being the default, and then got comfortable. Number 5, Maxwell House. Maxwell House is the sound of someone saying coffee. Normal coffee. It's been around forever. It's one of those brands that feels like a household object, like a toaster. It's not trying to be trendy, it's not trying to be cool, it's just trying to be there. And that's the problem. Maxwell House coffee often tastes like a product that survived on inertia for decades. The cup has this signature profile, a roast-forward bitterness with a kind of hollow center. You get the smell, you get the coffee vibe, and then the flavor lands like someone waved a coffee bean near the water and called it a day. It's harsh without being rich, bitter without being deep, strong in a way that feels like it's trying to overwhelm you rather than satisfy you. And when coffee is bad, people usually do one of two things: they doctor it up, or they normalize it. Maxwell House is the king of normalization. People drink it for years and assume coffee is supposed to taste like that. Then they try a decent bag from literally anywhere else and realize, oh, coffee can taste like chocolate nuts fruit caramel, not just burnt. Maxwell House tastes like the house, if the house is haunted by burnt toast. Now, number 4 is another giant name, maybe the most iconic default coffee in America, and it hurts because so many people have emotional loyalty to it. Number 4, Folgers. Folgers is not just a coffee brand, it's a cultural artifact. It's commercials, it's kitchen counters, it's the best part of waking up burned into your brain like a jingle you can't delete. And that's why it's so hard to criticize, because criticizing Folgers feels like criticizing people's childhood. But we're not judging your childhood. We're judging the cup. And Folgers for a lot of people is the definition of aggressively mediocre. It's one of those coffees that can smell weirdly comforting in the bag, then taste like it was roasted specifically to remove nuance. The roast is so dominant that everything else becomes background noise. You brew it and the flavor hits you like bitter, smoky, vaguely woody. And then there's a strange dry finish that makes you want water afterward. It's coffee that makes you understand why so many people think coffee needs a mountain of sugar and creamer to be enjoyable. Because without those, Folgers can feel like you're drinking a hot beverage whose main flavor is shout. Folgers taste like someone yelled coffee into the pot. And now we enter the realm of brands that aren't just selling you coffee, they're selling you an identity. Because number 3 is a brand you think you know, but the grocery version is doing something very different. Number 3, Dunkin' packaged coffee. Dunkin' coffee has a reputation. People have a relationship with it. In-store Dunkin' can be sweet, smooth, comforting, like a dependable routine. It's the coffee you drink while your brain slowly turns on. So the packaged Dunkin' coffee in grocery stores should be an easy win, right? Except here's what happens. You buy it expecting that recognizable Dunkin' vibe, and you brew a cup that tastes like a corporate impression of Dunkin'. It's like the coffee is trying to be friendly and familiar, but it can't quite get there. The aroma is often better than the taste. The flavor can land oddly flat, and sometimes it finishes with this slightly artificial note like the coffee is wearing a cologne called breakfast. And again, people blame themselves. Did I use the wrong amount? Is my water weird? Did I store it wrong? No, sometimes the product is just not delivering what the brand promised. Packaged Dunkin' tastes like Dunkin' called in sick and sent a substitute. Now, number two is the one that probably triggers the most arguments because it's the biggest premium name on the shelf, and people feel personally attacked if you say it isn't worth it. But that's exactly why it's here. Number two, Starbucks grocery store coffee. Starbucks is the master of coffee branding. They didn't just sell coffee, they sold a lifestyle, a third place, a vibe, a whole identity built around a cup in your hand. So when you see Starbucks coffee in the grocery aisle, you think, okay, at least this will be solid. They're literally Starbucks. And then you brew it and you get the most common Starbucks grocery experience, burnt, but somehow still weak. Starbucks packaged coffee often leans into a roast profile that's intense, smoky, and blunt. It's like the roast is doing all the talking and the bean is just along for the ride. If you like dark roast, you might say that's the point. Fair, but even dark roast can be rich and chocolatey and satisfying. This is often dark roast that feels flat where the strength is mostly bitterness, not depth. And the tragedy is people buy Starbucks coffee thinking they're upgrading, and then they spend the whole cup masking it with cream and sugar just to make it tolerable. Starbucks grocery coffee tastes like the roast is the brand, not the beans. Now, if number two is the biggest premium disappointment, number one is the biggest, how is this still a thing on the shelf? Because number one is the brand that proves most Americans aren't buying coffee for flavor, they're buying coffee for the idea of coffee. Number one, community coffee. Community coffee isn't as universal as Folgers or Starbucks, but it shows up enough and it shows up with a strong sense of identity. The branding says tradition, it says heritage. It says we know what we're doing, and in theory, that's what you want. But the problem people run into is consistency, and the flavor profile that often lands in the same trap as the worst legacy brands, a cup that tastes over roasted thin and oddly one dimensional. It's the kind of coffee that hits you with a bitter front, then disappears like it never had anything real to say. You finish the cup and feel like you've consumed caffeine, not coffee. And because the name community carries warmth, people expect warmth. But the cup can feel sharp, like the coffee is trying to be bold without being complex. Community coffee tastes like a community meeting where nobody brought snacks. Now I know someone is typing furiously right now, but I love brand, and that's fine. Taste is personal, habits are powerful, and if a coffee gets you through your morning, that matters. But here's the bigger point. Most grocery coffee is designed to be good enough for the widest possible audience. That usually means leaning hard on roast flattening nuance and selling you a familiar name so you stop asking questions. The 30-second grocery coffee checklist so you stop getting fooled. Rule number one. If it only tastes strong because it's bitter, that's not strength. That's just roast hiding flaws. Rule number two. If the bag smells better than the cup tastes, it's usually stale or flat. Aroma is easy. Flavor depth is harder. Rule number three. Dark roast shouldn't mean burnt. A good dark roast still has sweetness and body. If it's all smoke, you're paying for char. Rule number four. If you constantly need sugar/creamer to tolerate it, it's not your preference. It's damage control. Rule number five. Buy smaller bags more often. A huge bag that sits open for weeks is a one-way ticket to, why does this taste like cardboard? And the biggest tip that nobody wants to hear because it's too simple. If you can find a local roaster or a smaller brand with a roast date and a clear flavor profile, you don't need to become a coffee nerd. You just need to stop rewarding the companies selling you nostalgia in place of flavor. Now I want to know, which one of these brands do you think is the biggest offender? Folgers Maxwell House, Dunkin' Starbucks, 8 o'clock, Great Value McCafe, or Community Coffee? And be honest, which one do you still drink anyway? Drop your go-to brand in the comments and tell me how you brew it. Drip Keurig French press and I'll tell you whether the coffee is the problem, or if your method is accidentally making it worse. And if you made it this far, comment the word biage, because if you've ever had a cup that tasted like beige, you deserve a support group.